The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks. Mr. Speaker, the CIA has a budget of over $30 billion. The FBI has a budget of over $3 billion. In addition, $10 to $12 billion are specifically designated to fighting terrorism. Yet with all this money and power, we were not warned of the events that befell us on 9/11. Since the tragic attacks, our officials have located and arrested hundreds of suspects, frozen millions of dollars of assets, and gotten authority to launch a military attack against the ringleaders in Afghanistan. It seems the war against the terrorists, or guerrillas, if one really believes we're in an actual war, has so far been carried out satisfactorily and under current law. But the question is, do we really need a war against the civil liberties of the American people? We should never casually sacrifice any of our freedoms for the sake of a perceived security. Most security, especially in a free society, is best carried out by individuals protecting their own property and their own lives. The founders certainly understood this, and is the main reason we have the Second Amendment. We cannot have a policeman stationed in each of our homes to prevent burglaries, but owners of property with possession of a gun can easily do it. A new giant agency for Homeland Security cannot provide security, but it can severely undermine our liberties. This approach may well, in the long run, make many Americans feel less secure. The principle of private property ownership did not work to prevent the tragedies of 9/11, and there's a reason for that. The cries have gone out that due to the failure of the airlines to protect us, we must nationalize every aspect of aviation security. This reflects a serious error in judgment and will lead us further away from the principle of private property ownership and toward increasing government dependency and control with further sacrifice of our freedoms. More dollars and more federal control over the airline industries are not likely to give us the security we all seek. All industrial plants in the United States enjoy reasonably good security. They are protected not by the local police, but by owners putting up barbed wire fences, hiring guards with guns, and requiring identification cards to enter. All this without any violation of anyone's civil liberties. And in a free society, private owners have a right, if not an obligation, to profile if it enhances security. This technique of providing security through private property ownership is about to be rejected in its entirety for the airlines industry. The problem was that the principle of private property was already undermined for the airlines by partial federalization of security by FAA regulations. Airports are owned by various government entities. The system that failed us prior to 9/11 not only was strictly controlled by government regulations, it specifically denied the right of owners to defend their property with a gun. At one time, guns were permitted on airlines to protect the U.S. mail, but for more than 40 years, airlines have not been allowed to protect human life with firearms. Some argue that pilots have enough to worry about flying the airplane and have no time to be concerned about a gun. How come drivers of armored vehicles can handle both? Why do we permit more protection for money being hauled around the country in a truck than we do for passengers on an airline? If government management of airline security has already failed us, why should we expect expanding the role of government in this area to be successful? One thing for sure, we can expect it to get very expensive and the lines to get a lot longer. The government's idea of security is asking who packed your bag, has the bag been with you since you packed it, and requiring plastic knives to be used on all flights while taking fingernail clippers away from pilots. Pilots overwhelmingly support their right to be armed, some even threatening not to fly if they are not permitted to do so. This could be done quickly and cheaply by merely removing the prohibition against it, as my bill, H.R. 2896, would do. We must not forget 4 well-placed guns could have prevented the entire tragedy of 9/11. This is a crucial time in our history. Our policy of foreign interventionism has contributed to this international crisis. How we define our enemies will determine how long we fight and when the war is over. The expense will be worth it if we make the right decisions. Targeting the forces of bin Laden makes sense, but invading 8 to 10 countries without a precise goal will prove to be a policy of folly, lasting indefinitely, growing in size and cost in terms of dollars and lives, and something for which most Americans will eventually grow weary. Our prayers and hopes are with our President that he continues to use wise judgment in accomplishing this difficult task, something that he has been doing remarkably well under the very difficult circumstances.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings.